Good afternoon. I'm not sure where you are from, so I guess have a good day. It's better. I'm Anastasia and I will be your host, but we still have some time before to start, so let's wait patiently. And remember to have, during the presentation, to have your microphones muted, so there will be a better reception for you guys. Right now, I'm going to give my voice over to Andreas. Andreas, are you ready?
I am ready, indeed.
So I hope that that the quick and short presentation about what we do as a company was helpful for you. And now for the main event, Andreas, I'm giving the rest to you. Your microphone is muted.
So that's better now.
Yes.
And I would like to share my screen. The important one and the most comprehensive one is for sure the plastic regulation. The plastic regulation is a regulation which covers all types of plastic materials like films, bottles, these trays, being that a monolayer or also a multi-layer, like these trays are usually multi-layers, polypropylene, polyethylene, polystyrene, PET, never mind. We learned today in the later afternoon, we will learn that in the USA, we have different legislation for PET and for polypropylene. That's not the case in Europe. In Europe, all plastics are covered by the plastic regulation, by the one plastic regulation. And also, all plastics which are combined with other materials, like the plastic closure in a metal can, or like the plastic layer on this aluminium closure from this yogurt pot, or like the PE liner in this coffee to go beaker. All of these plastic layers are also covered by the plastic regulation. So what are the fundamental requirements? You remember we talked about the framework regulation, 1935 Article 3. Here we found that any migration must not endanger human health. You remember? And this human health aspect is now here in the plastic regulation defined by specific migration limits, or SMLs. For sure, you have heard about that, all of you. Specific migration limits are applicable for certain chemicals, and for certain chemicals where we know they have a certain toxicity. Some of them might be very toxic, some of them is medium, some of them are not toxic at all. We do not know this in detail, but for those where we have a certain toxicity, we have a so-called specific migration limit. And this specific migration limit is from 10 ppb up to 60 milligrams per kilogram. And you see here some examples like the phthalic acid, acetaldehyde, antimonoxide, formaldehyde, vinyl chloride. So for all of these ingredients which we used to manufacture a plastic material, we have specific migration limits in the plastic regulation. A very, very long list, more than 1,000 substances are in there, and a lot of them have such a specific migration limit. For any plastic material, we need to have a look which of the ingredients have a specific migration limit, and then we need to control it. The second requirement, you remember, is the unacceptable change in the composition. That's a bit tricky. So if we have a change in the composition of a food, when is it acceptable and when is it unacceptable? That's not clearly defined. So the common understanding of the unacceptable change, or when is a change in the food acceptable and when is it non-acceptable, the common understanding is this is the global migration. So global migration means we analyze how much of a food is migrating to, of a packaging is migrating to food. We do not take care whether this is a heavy metal, or is this a phthalate, or is this a moshmoa, doesn't matter. We just measure the total sum, how much is in total. And the amount in total is measured in a square decimeter, so 10 to 10 centimeter. And from this surface of 10 to 10 centimeters, only 10 milligrams may migrate. Fully independent what it is. We do not measure it. We just weigh the amount of substances released by a packaging. And this must be less than 10 milligrams per decimeter square. And this is what we call the global migration. And this is what is understood, or what is interpreted as being the limit for unacceptable or acceptable. The last one, the third one, the organoleptics, they are not listed in the plastic regulation itself. So you see here, they are only from the framework regulation. This is the sensorical testing according to this standard, or there's also an ISO standard. So what we do is we take your packaging, like this bottle here, or like this coffee to go beaker. We take it, we fill some food into it, and we store it. Let's say for the coffee to go beaker, we store it for half an hour. And then we drink. We drink the water filled into the beaker, and we evaluate, is this normal, or is this a tiny, a small change, or is this, ooh, really ugly? And if this is, the limit is usually 2.5. So we have a scale from 0. 0 means, oh, fine, no change in food, in smell, no taste, change in taste. And 4 means fully unacceptable. We will never use this cup anymore. And if we are on this scale from 0 to 4, if we have 2.5, then it is still acceptable. And if we have 3, then it is a fail in the meaning of the framework regulation. And last but not least, in Article 19 of the plastic regulation, 10/2011, we have the so-called NIAS. NIAS is an abbreviation for non-intentionally added substances. So these are impurities, these are reaction and degradation products of any ingredient in the packaging. So if we have a phthalic acid, if we have some formaldehyde resins, melamine resins, if they are degraded, or if there are residual monomers in and they migrate, then they are called NIAS. And the limit is usually a 10 ppb limit. So if we do a testing of a plastic material, we usually do these 4 steps here. In any case, we measure for NIAS. In any case, we analyze the organoleptics. And in nearly any case, we also go for the global migration. The only exception where the plastic regulation says that we don't need a global migration is when the packaging is only for dry food. So let's say noodles, dry noodles, or bread, cakes, without chocolate. Chocolate is fatty, but dry cakes, these dry food products, they do not require an overall migration. All other, we need a global migration. And we also check your product, your packaging product. Is there a substance with a specific migration? And if this is the case, then we also need to measure specific migrations. So once again, in summary, we have the NIAS compounds, we have the taste and smell, we have the global migration limit, and we have the specific migration limit. These 4 blocks, these 4 groups of tests always needs to be done. And if this is successful, if we have tested this, and if we found that everything is fine, everything is within the legal limit, then we can prepare such a declaration of compliance. or of course you can do this also on your own. But we as Eurofins, we offer this also as a service for you. If we have performed these tests and if we found everything is great, then we offer this as a service that we do these declarations of compliance for you. What is the content? The first is that there need to be a date on it. This is rather simple. We need to see how old is the declaration of compliance. Is it 5 or 10 years old? Then we need to issue a new one. So a date. Then we need to have the identity, the name, and the address of the business operator. If we take, for instance, Obay Khan, who is today, present today in the training, Obay Khan has several factories. So if a customer gets a declaration of compliance from Obay Khan, he needs to know which of these different factories has manufactured, and if he has a request or a complaint, which of these factories should he ask? So that's important that you not only have the name, but also the address on the declaration of compliance. Then we need to confirm that the material is compliant with the Framework Regulation 1935 and with the plastic regulation. This is what you can see here. Then we need to confirm that the overall and the specific migration are compliant. Be aware, the plastic regulation only says that you need to confirm that it is compliant. The plastic regulation does not say that you need to have a list of substances in your declaration, nor do they say, how did you do this? Did you measure or did you calculate or whatever? No, they just say confirm, overall is okay, and specific migration is okay. That's it, not more. Then what is very important, we need to have dual use additives here. Dual use additives is something which is unfortunately very, very often forgotten. Dual use additives, I think that's worth another slide because it's really a crucial point. Dual use additives, we have two different groups of dual use additives. The first one are potential allergens. So especially here in Europe, we are, is there some question? No, especially we here in Europe.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I have question, and tell me if this is the right time to ask this question or I have to wait.
No, go for it, please.
Yeah. Actually, we are, while we implementing the food safety, we have to do migration test.
Yes.
So we are sending the sample to the lab and give me all the migration parameters for all the metals and what is the level and we are within the level or no.
Yes.
And I'm using this certificate as a compliance for the migration against the coating and ink and paper and so.
Yes.
So what I understand from you, I can do this with your lab or with your company, and you give me the test, the certification plus compliance certificate as well.
Yes.
Okay, which will add more value to my compliance. That's already guarantee. Is not only limited certificate, is there is a complete compliance without going details.
Exactly.
Okay,
that's
okay,
correct.
I got it. Okay.
Okay. Okay, the first group, the first block of dual-use additives is we here in Europe and also in the United States. I'm not really sure about the more Muslimic countries, but we are very much in favor of red wine. So a lot of people drink red wine, and on the labels, we have a labeling for red wines that this usually contains sulfites. Sulfate is an issue of allergens. So for sure, you all are aware of allergens, and these sulfates, they are also mentioned in the plastic regulation. This is an allowed food additive. So if we have a food additive like sulfate, which is an allergen, then you need to label it. That's, to be honest, a bit theoretical. The next example is much more relevant. This is BHT. BHT is an antioxidant. This is a preservative. This is allowed to be used for plastics, and this has a specific migration limit of 3 ppm. But BHT is also an approved food additive, for instance, for chewing gums and all types of sweets. So if you, as a manufacturer of the plastic, is using BHT, and let's say you are very, very close to the legal limit, you are very close to the legal limit, and then the food manufacturer is using BHT as a food preservative, then you may exceed the legal limit because you have a migration from the packaging, and you have also already some food additive in the chewing gum, and both together can be above the legal limit. Or another example, this is sodium nitrate. This is for certain types of meat. There it is allowed in Europe as a food additive E250. And if the meat manufacturer is using this sodium nitrite to preserve the meat, and you are also using it in packaging, then both together can again be above the legal limit. And that's the reason why these dual-use additives are so important. Okay, dual-use additives must be listed here without any migration, nothing else. You just need to list here the dual-use additives. And then what is for your customers, for the food company, most important is in the declaration of compliance, you must inform, is there any restriction from the food? So is this a packaging which is suitable for all kinds of food, or is this packaging just for dry food or only for fatty food? This is something which you need to define and which you need to inform in the declaration of compliance. Also, you must give information about restriction regarding the time. So very most of our project of the packaging we are testing for our customers, they are suitable usually for room temperature. But they have never been tested for hot filling or for sterilization or for preparing food in the bag or in the cup. So that is usually not tested. That's fine, that's allowed, that's no problem. But you must inform your customer that the packaging you are selling him is only intended for room temperature for a very long time. That's it. He must know this. And last but not least, this is more an information from the laboratory. Usually we do the testing with the EU standard cube, which is 6 decimeters square of packaging to pack 1 kilogram of food. And this surface to volume ratio must be given in the declaration of compliance. So we have here these 7 blocks. They are listed in the plastic regulation in Annex 4. So this is a legally binding requirement. You must give this information to your customers to be sure that he only fills the food which is suitable into your packaging. That's very important. Last but not least, this is why I gave this a different color in orange. It is not clearly defined whether a declaration of compliance need to be signed, whether you need to have a written signature on it. A lot of customers require this to have a legally binding document to know who has prepared it, but that's not clearly defined. So if you do a declaration of compliance by computer generation, if this is automatically generated, this is okay. This is acceptable by the legislation. Okay, 2 more aspects which we very often are asked. The one is the form of a declaration of compliance. So is it needed that you provide a declaration of compliance in written to your customer? Must it be on a paper, or is it okay also as a PDF, or which form is requested or is written in the legislation? Clearly said, the legislation does not define that it must be printed or that it must be electronically by email or whatever. They clearly say that it is even allowed that you store a declaration of compliance on your website and inform your customer that they can download the current version of the DOC from your website. That's okay, that's fully accepted. And last but not least, what about the validity? So how often do you need to repeat a declaration of compliance? There you can find something in Article 15 of the plastic regulation. It says that a declaration of compliance shall be renewed when substantial changes in the composition of a product occur. So that makes sense. If you make a bottle or if you print a paper and you change the ink, for instance, or you change the paper supplier, then of course the declaration of compliance is not valid anymore. Or when new scientific data becomes available. So this means if the legislation change or something like that. But if this is not the case, if you have no new raw material, if you don't change any ingredient, and if the legislation has not changed, then the declaration of compliance is still acceptable. So there is no shelf life or no need to issue a new declaration every year or every second year. That's simply not required. I think that's clear, isn't it? Okay. That's in terms of the plastic regulation. So we have the framework regulation, we have the GMP regulation, and we have the plastic regulation. Here you see myself again and my team. And Natalia, I think we have a bit more of time. If there are questions, I'm more than happy to answer if possible.